So I'm going to do some thanks up front, and I want to begin by thanking all of them, everyone who's made this inaugural Strategic Command Conference possible. To all of you for attending, for listening, for contributing to the discussion and engaging. To the speakers for what have been some really stimulating presentations and for engaging so effectively in discussion. To Paul O'Neill and Magdalena Markovic from RUSI in particular, and Captain John Craig from my organisation and the others in the headquarters that have assisted him for their tireless work behind the scenes that have made today appear so effortless. And finally, and most obviously to RUSI, in particular for hosting today, but also more generally for being a really valuable and valued and valuable critical friend to us in Strategic Command and to defence more broadly. So, conscious that I'm all that stands between you and a very, very high-end aperitif, I want to take no more than 15 minutes to outline the three top strategic priorities that I judge we've got to pursue this year and beyond to address the most pressing challenges we face. And those are cyber, special operations and intelligence, and multi-domain integration. Why these three? Well, I'll give you 6 reasons. First of all, because they tackle the most pressing threats and vulnerabilities, and so they offer the most relevant capabilities that we and our allies need right now, but also in the future. Secondly, they restore our ability to seize and to maintain the initiative in, and we can get back to the labels thing, but the so-called grey zone, and contribute to deterrence in multiple domains. Thirdly, they build on areas where we already have a tradition of excellence and a competitive advantage. Fourth, they complement and strengthen the capabilities of the Navy, the Army and the Royal Air Force and our national intelligence agency partners. They lay the foundations to accelerate the broader transformation of defence to adapt from the industrial to the information age, and they foster bottom-up information. And finally, got right with the necessary acquisition reform, a big if, they will contribute to national prosperity and the restoration of UK's sovereign capacity and advantage and IP in vital areas of the digital economy. So the imperative, I think, cannot be in doubt. Let's pick them off each at a time. So first of all, cyberspace is as much, if not more so, as vital a part of the global commons as the maritime, the air and the space domains. Our national prosperity and our national security depend on being able to protect ourselves in this domain, and when necessary, to be able to take the fight to our adversaries to weaken their ability to do us harm and to deter them. Yet in defence, at least, we have not moved at the pace of cyber to address the threats to our networks, our platforms and our people, and our priorities do not yet, anyway, reflect the imperative to protect ourselves and seize the initiative in cyberspace. Nor have we organised ourselves properly for this domain. So we have services that are organised, trained and equipped to fight in each of the physical domains. Indeed, we're seeing the birth of forces of services to fight in the space domain, most recently in the US, but the Chinese have done this already. And others, not least the Israeli Defence Forces, who we heard about earlier on, have created a separate service for cyber and the information domain. So we need at the very least to learn from that approach, and quickly, otherwise we risk falling behind in a cyber arms race. Second imperative, in the information age, taking the points about reversionary modes, operational success will depend on our ability to process, disseminate and exploit information. Not doing that risks certain defeat. Yet we remain a platform and a domain-centric force, and our investment priorities continue to reflect this. So in the list of defence's major programs, you have to go a long way down the list before you get to the first one that delivers information technology and what we've been talking about today. So we've got to shift to a posture where we privilege data, we privilege networks as the foundation for any capability, and we treat data as our most valuable exploitable asset. Now, our peers in the Royal Air Force, the Army and the Royal Navy, deliberately inverted that, are making Herculean efforts to digitalize their platforms. But without a network to connect the data, cloud-based computing to store and process it, and artificial intelligence to harness it, these platforms, their people, their sensors, and their weapon systems will remain stovepiped within domains. And our ability to exploit the sort of technology that supports decision-making in the financial sector every day at speeds of microseconds will remain at industrial age speeds. Third imperative. So echoing previous patterns and eras of conflict, I liked Ian Blackford's intervention on this, I recognize it. But our adversaries are engaging in great power competition, and they are remaining, they're waging this below the threshold of armed conflict, using what Julian Lindley-French has called 5D warfare, which he describes as the planned and systematic application of disinformation, deception, destabilization, disruption, and implied destruction. I think you could add a sixth D to his 5, which is across domains. So constrained by a legal and conceptual framework that sees competition in simple terms of peace and war, we've been slow to adapt to a regression to strategic competition and confrontation, and to adapt the tools to regain the initiative. So we now think, or beginning to anyway, in terms of operating continuously to protect ourselves, to engage and to contest, and being prepared to fight with allies episodically. But we've got to develop a new legal and policy framework that allows us to regain tempo and the initiative below the law, below the level of armed conflict, while we establish and promote international norms that do sustain international institutions and the international rules-based system. And we've got to compete more effectively to offer Her Majesty's government military options to fuse with other levers of power, diplomatic, economic, and information, because the consequences of not doing so will be a progressive and corrosive and inevitable weakening of our sovereignty, our national security, our independence, and indeed our prosperity. So the challenge, first and foremost, is one of building a resistance force to this threat, a sort of information age SOE. And the opportunity beyond that is one where that response regains the initiative and allows us to suppress these threats from adversaries, to deter harmful actions, and allow us, in due course, to dominate the escalatory ladder. And the final imperative is to recognize the expansion of conflict of the contested space in new domains, both above and below the threshold of conflict. So history is replete with examples of states and military leaders that have exploited a new dimension of warfare to outflank their adversaries, or indeed to create new or multiple dilemmas. That goes all the way back to the Peloponnesian Wars. And so now, unable and or unwilling to compete within the traditional three-domain joint environment where we have excelled, it's one of our USPs, our adversaries, unsurprisingly, have developed and exploited this fourth industrial revolution to exploit this paradigm of conflict. So cyber and space are the new means of outflanking us, and the information environment is the permanently contested battleground. So while the UK and a very limited number of allies have enjoyed an advantage over adversaries in the prosecution of three-domain integration, joint warfare, the playing field and the rules of the game have changed. Gennady Gerasimov himself said so. So to compete for advantage means that we've got to be proficient in the integration of activities and effects across not 3 but 5 domains, 3 levels of war across government and with their allies. Put bluntly, our way of warfare is understood, predictable, industrial, and vulnerable. We're at a point of juncture, a fold in history, a sail to steam moment in the industrial age. So we have to build, first and foremost, on the advantages that we already hold. As a nation, we feature third in the index measuring digital innovation potential. And we feature third, believe it or not, in the global league table for artificial intelligence. But it will take a determined effort and some hard prioritization, and as James Heapy said earlier on today, some political bravery if we're going to resource and exploit these advantages. So what does Strategic Command do? We will transition the Industrial Age Joint Force to the Information Age's Integrated Force. We'll strengthen the foundations of integration within the current force and experiment and develop the capabilities and structures required for this decade and the 2030s and beyond. We will effectively seek to disrupt ourselves. And this will be achieved in these 3 key areas that I've described. All of these are transformative, all of them are essential. So in the cyberspace domain, Strategic Command will provide the defensive and offensive cyber capabilities that protect our networks from attack, allow us to deter, and if necessary, engage and operate in cyberspace against those who would do us harm. And we will grow our capability by orders of magnitude over the next few years in tandem with our national intelligence partners and with our closest international allies. We are already recruiting from the most diverse pool of talent across defence. We'll manage this capability within the command, but we have to look further at the new workforce, the new cyber warriors that we're trying to attract and retain. Our second priority has to be to grow our special operations and intelligence capability to enhance what is already one of our most valued and relevant strategic assets, but also one of our most overstretched. So today, our special forces have evolved into a highly sophisticated counter-terrorist force, reliant on joint and allied support at the expense of their ability to constrain or fight hostile states above and below the threshold. The focus on counter-terrorism has also pulled special forces from their traditional role in support of the UK's 4 military commands. So as threats proliferate, the costs to our special forces and their capacity to meet their specified tasks, let alone increase their ability to deliver the same precise effect against more challenging targets, is currently unsustainable. So we'll explore how we reset and augment our world-class special forces to bridge the gap between the high-end special forces operations and those of our regular forces. And at the same time, we'll adapt and enhance, in a way you heard earlier on from Jim, our defence intelligence organisation, transform our intelligence collection, and harness the accelerant of data analytics and artificial intelligence to further contribute to the defence and government understanding and decision making. This will enhance, both of these two things, will enhance our ability to protect and to deter, to engage forward, building partnerships and understanding in areas that might emerge as threats to the UK and constrain adversaries from escalation or causing us harm. The strategic command will develop the skills required to integrate our forces across defence, and the agile nature of special forces intelligence will provide opportunities to use them as the incubator for integrated operations to test and adapt before applying at scale. And there is an advantage and a logic here. So if you use the special forces or special operations for this, they have a very clearly defined operational problem that they can cluster around and that industry can support. They already operate multi-domain. They are agile, they're innovative. They have the freedom to fail fast and fail early, and my goodness, they are demanding users, if any of you have ever encountered them. So they provide a very useful pathfinder, and one that, because of its covert nature, doesn't have to be seen publicly. So taken together, these first two priorities, which build on strategic capabilities where we already hold a competitive advantage, these will significantly enhance our ability to operate sub-threshold, offering choice and options to the government for integration into national responses. And the third priority is multi-domain integration. I take Ollie's challenge about focus. So if you want a main effort, this is it. Building on 3 decades of joint operations in the land, sea, and air domains will harness space and cyberspace to achieve multi-domain integration, which is the seamless planning and execution of activities and effects across all domains at a pace and tempo that outstrips our adversaries. We've done this successfully but episodically over the last decade. It'll now become the default, and Strategic Command will lead Defence's transformation here internally with government and internationally. And the main effort, bit of the main effort, well, information and the establishment of the digital backbone, the data, the clouds and the networks have to be at the heart of this as the enabler, but also as the accelerant, growing our ability to exploit data analytics and AI to enable understanding, deciding and acting faster than our opponents, to seize opportunity and generate consistent advantage. Now, this also requires that we treat command and control, our headquarters and the underpinning sinews, as capabilities in their own right. And we develop this accordingly with the permanent joint headquarters leading some of the experimentation. Because there will be profound implications for how the technological opportunities of exploiting AI will affect how we direct and execute military activity. We talked about it earlier on. And we do need to adapt at the speed of technology. But we do need to be careful as well that in our search for speed, we don't sacrifice wisdom. We'll enhance defence logistics, driving out duplication, applying advanced data analytics and automation, and protecting our home base and supply chains. The global presence provided by our overseas bases will be enhanced, ensuring a permanent sovereign platform to protect and to project our national interests. Defence intelligence, as you've heard, will provide enhanced technology-aided understanding, and our medical services will provide world-leading optimised medical care. So taken together, the capabilities within Strategic Command will take UK defence into the information age. And our emphasis on integrating disruptive technologies, novel applied conceptual frameworks, data and information, intelligence, and regular, special, and cyber forces able to operate, and if necessary, fight, make Strategic Command unique. We make defence much more than the sum of its parts. So finally, to deliver this will require, as we've heard, clear prioritisation investment. But above all, it will require the right people with the right skills in the right place at the right time, and raised, trained, organised and equipped for the unique demands of operating and fighting with these information age capabilities. And our values matter here, and there are 3 in Strategic Command. We're progressive. The thing that motivates me most is that we act in the best interest of defence, and we're equally comfortable enabling the single services, and we do a lot of that, but also leading where we need to. We're innovative, encouraging initiative and disruptive thinking, and being safe to fail to accelerate learning. More than a buzz phrase, there is no lack of appetite for people to take risk in operational environments. It's one of the things that make us unique. But we have to find a way of bottling that and baking it into some of our commercial and our procurement processes to free people up to fail. And finally, I like to think we certainly seek to be inclusive because it's right. Not just because it's right, it's necessary if we're going to attract and harness the skills of this information age. I certainly hope that there won't be someone who looks like me in this job in 5 or 10 years' time. So that's us, defence as integrator, defence as disruptor, I hope, for the next year or two, but above all, defence as accelerator. Thank you very much indeed for coming today, and please enjoy the drinks.